All right, hi guys. Thanks so much for coming down. Just give me a sec as I share screen on it. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys see the screen? Got it. Okay. Cool. Yep. So, morning everyone. I'm Colin from the blockchain department here at NUS Fintech Society. Thank you so much for coming to join us today. Today will just be a really quick one on what exactly is blockchain. A very quick overview of some of the things that are happening, and just looking at the careers and some possible pathways as students is what we can do. And of course, there'll be a Q&A session at the end. I think we just leave it more open for that. Yeah, if you have any questions on it. Yeah, so welcome once again to Introduction to Blockchain. So I think there has been a lot of recent buzz, as we all know, for the memes like the Dogecoin back in early 2021, mid 2021. We look at the market, basically right now it's a bloodshed in the market, everything is red. And then of course we look at new tools like DeFi's, which is what we call decentralized finance, which offers high APYs if you've heard of Olympus DAO and all their forks of over 40,000%. So there is a lot of recent buzz about blockchain, but I think it's important that we go a bit deeper. So we just want to quickly establish this, right? What is money? Because we have to understand the definition in order to really understand the tokens that blockchain really introduces in the revolutionary model. So fiat money can be seen as a medium of exchange. So basically, as long as people believe that money has value, of course, that's when the transactions happen. So imagine your Sing dollar, your 50 Sing dollar, we all believe that it's worth $50. That's why it's worth $50. Okay, that's basically money. Next, divisible and fungible. So a $50 note equals to 5 $10 notes. So it's basically easy to understand. It can be divided easily, just based on the definition. And of course, finally, it's a store of value. It's a stable store of value. It doesn't fluctuate much because of central bank policies. So that's fiat money. So the current financial model is one which is this. First, we look at is banks. So, you deposit money, there's a lot of KYC measures. Within the banks, there's a lot of calculations just to make sure the ledgers are balanced across, which takes days at times. And then, of course, across banks, I think later we'll see in the diagram how it all works, but this is just a general review. In cross banks, it takes time, especially for international transactions. It has to go through a lot of financial corridors, and all these tend to incur costs. So what we currently see apart from all those is what we call applications, right? Which is basically what Google Cloud is, Twitter, Facebook. Everything is stored on a centralized database. It's all private. You will never know what happens if there's a hack. Basically, they just say it's a hack and some fixes are being done. So no one really knows what is happening on a centralized application or a centralized database. But in a decentralized application, which is what we call a blockchain, basically you can see here, it's more of a peer-to-peer network. That means every node would have a history of all the transactions, and they're all connected together, and the data is all stored publicly, it's all transparent. But how this is stored, we're not going to go through too much in detail because it's a bit technical, but there are different types of consensus models. We have, for example, the proof of work, which is, to add a transaction to your own node, basically you have to do some mathematical computations. So that's the most basic one that we know from Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? But now Ethereum, which is the next part, is the proof of stake model, which is based on how much money you invest. Like maybe you stake more tokens, you become a validator, you validate the transactions, and they're incentivized not to validate malicious transactions because if they do so, the amount that they stake will be slashed. So they have to pay the penalty. More recently, we see new ones, but I'm just going to talk, for example, about proof of history by Solana. So what Solana does is, for example, every transaction, it is hashed. and it's based on timestamps. That's why it's called a history, right? So every node will have that kind of verifiable delay function, if I'm not wrong, that's the full name. And then that forms an ordering of the transactions, and that's how you form the proof of history. And at the same time, Solana adopts the proof of stake, because all these validators who add and do all these hashing, they need to also stake a certain amount of tokens. So that's why we see a hybrid model for new forms of ecosystems today, or layer networks today. Yeah, so this is the consensus model, which is what we'll just, this is just a basic overview. We are not going to go through too much, but yeah, it's why you see how the nodes communicate, how they come to an agreement, basically. So there are three primary ones. So in a blockchain, what we usually look for is first what we call a smart contract. And we look at is the nodes, which is what we mentioned, the peer-to-peer network. And of course, finally is programmable money. That's why it's important to understand the definition of what fiat money is. So what are smart contracts, right? So smart contracts are literally pieces of code. You can write all your logic in it. It is automatic. That means all your terms and conditions are there already. It's deterministic. It just runs at it as it is. There's no external influence. So for example, if your interest is true, which is your automatic, as long as you always have interest, you will always say you love blockchain. If you don't like it, basically you're out, you don't like blockchain, that's all. So it's automatic and it's deterministic because it's just based on those set conditions in a smart contract. Next, of course, is the idea of programmable money. So that really comes down to the definition of money, because it's, as long as people see inherent value in it, that's why you see some of the token prices start to take off at the initial stage. So as long as you see that it can store money as a storage of value storage, you can see that accounts can hold it. And as long as transactions can happen as a medium of exchange, you basically have the legal money, which is what we see in the DeFi world today. So as mentioned, when we look at this entire model of the traditional financial markets, you see you have your KYC with your bank. You need to go through all these third parties, which are the financial intermediaries. You still have to reach the other bank, for example, from DBS to UOB, and then you can receive the money. So of course, yeah, pay now, it's immediate, etc. But behind the scenes, I think there's a lot of updating of the books by the banks, and these take time. And especially for international remittances, as mentioned, the financial corridors across different countries, all these take not just time, but it also takes money. Yeah, and more importantly is this idea. Everything is on a private balance sheet. You don't know what the banks hold until you see a bank run, right? And that's what we have always been seeing the past few years. Bank runs happening everywhere, and that's why CeFi has some vulnerabilities. Yeah. So a very basic understanding of the DeFi infrastructure is this: programmable money, which are your tokens, the decentralized infrastructure, which is your peer-to-peer network, and of course, smart contracts, which is your coding logic. So what we see first is some products that we see is what we call decentralized exchanges using the automated market model. So that's what we see with Uniswap, who pioneered it, and we see SushiSwap, who forked it. But more recently, we see the VAMMs, which deals a bit more with the perpetuals. So you can see a lot of new innovations in the DeFi world. I'm not going to go through too much, but you can check these out, like perpetual protocols, Curve Finance. They are all offering some kind of a new financial model to it today. But how it works is this: basically, you have your liquidity pool, which is like you have Ethereum and USD, and then how do we maintain the exchange rate? It's based on this constant product formula, so it will always keep adjusting. So that's why we call it an automated market model. On the other hand, we have what we call is U-farming, another product, which is about interest payments. So you lock up funds in a lending pool, and then you earn when people basically transact on that pool. So for example, SushiSwap, if you use it, you are paid in X sushi. Basically, you earn some X sushi tokens from there. So these are just some applications that we see in the DeFi world. In terms of blockchain networks, I'll just put it up there. What are some current trends that we see today is for layer ones, the Ethereum network is something that we all know. But of course, Ethereum itself has reached what we call network congestion because there has been too many transactions on the network. And that's why there's a move to layer twos for Ethereum. So these are called rollup solutions. You might have heard of optimistic rollups. Basically, they assume that every transaction is optimistic, it is good, it's not fraudulent, and that's why they can just they post it there, and then they have a 7-day challenge period to see who wants to who can identify a malicious transaction. So that's the optimistic part. So the bad thing is that it takes time because there's the challenge period. Then we have a more recent one about zero knowledge rollups, ZK rollups in particular. I think this is something really cool and something that's emerging. You can check out on Stark, STARK versus Snarks, SNARK. So these are the types of ZK rollups that we have. Some things that you can see is, or rather how it works first, it's based on, for example, your transaction. You don't need to know what happens in your transaction, all the code, whatever. All you need to know is I transact, my output. So basically, ZK rollups is this. They just compare your outputs. It is based on your hashes. So it's more mathematical. A lot of proving is involved. So it's more computationally expensive, but it's very fast because they just need to check your outputs. So that's for layer 2 rollups. And of course, for other layer ones that we see emerging are Solana, which we all know is very famous for the NFT summer. Recent ones we see are Near Protocol, Avalanche is another one, which is gradually emerging. And on the side note, they are seeing very strong, synergies. So now layer ones are no longer seen as just, single layers. I think that's what a lot of people have a misconception in the past, like Ethereum is Ethereum, Solana is Solana. But if you read about Vitalik's Endgame article on 6th December, you would have heard about forging into the multi-chain world. And that's really what we see now, all the layer ones starting to converge. So like Avalanche, Phantom, they may be seeing very strong synergies because of Wonderland on Avalanche and basically the whole Foundation initiative. So what I'm just trying to say is that we have all these different networks that you can explore on, but don't just see them in silos or appreciate their different consensus, whatever, but see how they are starting to converge and create their own internal financial ecosystem, which I think is very revolutionary. So these are just some examples and applications that we see about blockchain for those of you who are interested in the business side. So for example, when we look at Walmart and supply chains, right? The common question is, where is my food coming from? So you can see it comes from the farm, goes to the packing house, you transport, goes across borders, process, distribute, store. There are basically a lot of stakeholders. It's a very dense network structure, very mature space because everything is so developed, but you don't know where your food is. So it's very opaque in this sense on the supply chain. So let's think from like a business side of view. It's like, we want to track the locations of your food. We want to make sure that the stakeholders are involved to update the status of the food because that's where the food is passing by, and we need an easily viewable visual to map out. So this is what we see other traits. We want it to be traceable. We want it to be accessible to all the stakeholders, and we want transparency to map out the locations of the food, right? So the approach that we see in the blockchain world is by IBM. So it was called the Food Traceability System, where they did barcode labeling, all the different stakeholders upload their certificates of authenticity, and basically there is a very easy visual to track across. So see the different stakeholders as in nodes and how they communicate on this permissioned blockchain system. So for example, we see for mangoes, it's from 7-day tracking, now just to 2.2 seconds. Another application that we see is about the environment, about how do we get people to protect the environment, right? So the challenge is that, okay, it's a huge problem. Microplastics harm marine life. Less developed economies, they get more badly hit because they get swept up their shores. They don't have the proper infrastructures to clean up. So that's a challenge that we see in the environment. So let's think about current solutions. Is that the awareness, the education? No one is recycling. I mean, people are recycling, but it's not very high. So how can we encourage good recycling? Which is through incentives, right? And how do we bring about more social good in the grand scheme of things? So what we see here is tokens. Create your own money, create your own ecosystem, and make it accessible to people. So what do I mean by that? So we see the One Plastic Bank once again by IBM. So how they encourage communities to collect waste. So basically the rural communities, they collect waste, then they go to some counter, they redeem for rewards. It's all within their own tokens. And what happens is, how do we drive it, right? Is that the recycled plastic source for manufacturing, that's how you can inject money into this ecosystem. So you can see how it sort of creates your own internal financial ecosystem with just a very simple example on Plastic Bank. So you would have seen some of these bags, just on a side note, at Marks and Spencer, for example, and they will have that logo, Plastic Bank. Yeah, so in the general landscape today, what we see for blockchain's popularity is this. We see political interest rising because we see the government, we see the governments, we see CBDCs. So what do I mean by that? Governments like El Salvador, the New York City mayor saying that he wants to get Bitcoin salary, whatever. And then CBDCs, right? For CBDCs, we see like Chinese yuan, we see a CBDC raise, in fact, by, okay, the US is a bit slow, but they're trying to join in. We see Korea and especially less developed economies, they're all coming up with CBDCs because they want to stabilize the economy. That's why it's more of a retail side of things. Next, we have is financial disruption. That's what we have gone through the new models, the new exchanges that we can see: Uniswap, SushiSwap, Curve Finance. All these offers very new revolutionary models today. Social attitudes. People are beginning to embrace the technology. It's not just feud talk anymore. You see crypto Twitter being a very important platform for the community together. And of course, Discord, etc., that you can start joining. And industrial applications, as we have gone through earlier across the sectors. So the blockchain market is definitely growing. And I mean, these are just some simple stats that you saw earlier. So in Singapore, what we have is we see the regulatory side of things. They're embracing it. We see MAS, Project Ubin, that focuses more on the wholesale side of CBDCs, which is more on cross-border transactions. We see the annual Singapore Fintech Festival. For those of you, you may also check out the Open Notes Initiative, which is a campus collective that offers industrial practicums. And of course, the government has also set aside the Blockchain Innovation Program. But basically, you see a lot of things happening in Singapore. I think the most recent hype about the exchanges where Binance has a stake, I think, in HGX Exchange. So you can see that, you know, there is a gradual regulatory adaptation and understanding of this blockchain technologies in Singapore. Next is some of the news. You see a lot of firms. Actually, if you just go to LinkedIn, you can see that there is so much happening already. I think we see a lot of startups and a lot of companies flying over to Singapore because of our very friendly regulatory scene here. So this is just something that you can take note of, is that blockchain is no longer just crypto, hype, field, that kind of nonsense anymore, but we really see it stabilizing and we see it being integrated in the financial system very soon. So this is just a general blockchain landscape map that we can see from IMDA in Singapore. So these are all the companies and services that are available. You can check this out on IMDA. So as a student, you know, what can I do, right? I think there are so many pathways here for blockchain. First, we have is programming. Of course, developing smart contracts, making your website look nice, integrating, which is what we call Web3, injecting Web3 into your website. to make it communicate with the smart contracts. So there's a whole new avenue for programming itself. For marketing, in the business side of things, of course, it's managing your communities. That's from your Twitter, that's from Discord, or whatever social media channels. Journalists writing articles, which is on the research side as well. Business solutions is what you have seen previously from Plastic Bank and the food traceability system. See how we can analyze problems in the supply chain, for example, and implement blockchain solutions, or even as a solution architect in the crypto space, where you create new financial models, as what we have seen, right? From Uniswap, it was just a simple AMM. Now we have so many different financial models today. And of course, there are many others like accounting, which is relatively new because it's very hard to monitor all the transactions, for example, Etherscan, and of course, the legal side of things. Because everything is written in code, how can we actualize it? It's code law, right? Basically, that's the question. So some companies are like DBS, JP Morgan, MAS, Temasek has also recently launched a blockchain fund. And yeah, so these are the many opportunities that are available as well. So as a student, what can I do, right? Of course, it's coding. If you're interested in the programming side of things, attending conferences and networking, I think these are really good because you really get exposed not just to the people in the industry, but you really find out about the latest trends. So a lot of these conferences, you can actually see them online, and they are like literally open for the public because that's what blockchain is all about, community building, right? So hop into those conferences if you want, and if you're lazy, I'm pretty sure there are all those recaps online because it's for the community, by the community, people will just put it up there. And of course, if you are curious about things and seeing how blockchain can solve, yeah, I think that'll be really cool because blockchain, as I've mentioned, it's a very new industry. It's no longer just about Bitcoin. There are so many new layers, layer one networks. There's always something new to learn from. So where can you learn from? Of course, it's Coursera, Udemy, EDX, or even just planting yourself in those communities. So usually, like they have Discord channels, right, for those DEXs or for those new financial models. Just plant yourself in. They have white papers to read from. They have a ton of documentation, in fact. So read from those, research on those, and if you have any questions, the community actually is more than willing to help you because that's where I also get my clarifications from, right? Where else but from the team and the community themselves who know the product best. Where to practice? For those of you, I would say Solidity would be a good place. Of course, Rust is something increasingly popular, but it's always good to start with Solidity as a basic on Crypto Zombies, which is a more gamified experience. And for those of you looking to deploy actual smart contracts on the testnet and even mainnet, consider Remix IDE. So in the university, I think there are so many things, as what you have seen. There's so many options from the career pathways. It's no longer just computing. We can see the business side coming, the economics side coming in. I think why we put here economics is we see this whole new landscape about metaverses, right? And I think in metaverses, what kicked it off was the XC Infinity one, where we look at the SLP and AXS. So tokenomics is very important, which is a big problem for XC Infinity right now. So how do you create like some cool economics model that is sustainable in the long run and that's profitable? Like economics we see is, I always like to go back to the OG Olympus DAO, right? The whole idea of bonding. Now that's economics, that's something new. So see how you can integrate that financial knowledge into the blockchain scene. And political science is just, understanding the landscape moving forward. Yeah, so that's pretty much all. It's really just a quick intro to blockchain. You can read more about the blockchain department here at FinTech Society. If you want to scan the QR code, we do have some cool stuff written by our members. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much the end. I'd like to open it more for Q&A because I think it's more fun if we can discuss some questions that you have. Yeah. if you guys have any questions, you just can bump it in sec. All right, from David. Do you think the best way to get involved in blockchain would be to invest in crypto, and do I have to put money to be invested, or should I intern at a blockchain startup? Well, the best way to get involved in blockchain, if you are a newbie, for example, I still remember when I was a newbie into this whole space, what I went for first was the FinTech Festival, because at the FinTech Festival, literally all the companies are going to sell you what is the most in thing for them, right? So just soak yourself in there and appreciate all the different trends. That's really what you can get from that as a newbie. Then as you move on, all right, you get more inspired. And if you have the financial capital, invest in crypto because that's when you get more vested in it. So consider that. But I would say if you really want to get the full experience, of course, interning at a blockchain startup, there are a lot of startups and SMEs in Singapore, in fact, who will be able to give you this opportunity. I myself interned first at the blockchain startup. And I think it was a very steep learning curve where I learned a lot, because in startups, it's not just like a new industry, but everything is so new as a team that it's so dynamic, right? That the learning curve and that whole journey is really very unpredictable and ambiguous. So yeah, it's really new. Like, I mean, I'm just going to give some context. Like before this, like literally 15 minutes before this presentation, I was having an interview with one of the blockchain capital firms. And what we always like to say is that this entire crypto journey is so ambiguous. As interns or even as working adults, it's really, no 2 days are the same. Yeah. So don't expect to come to like it to be like a bank, a very structured program. It's great if it's a structured program, but I think it's really difficult. So always be open-minded when you come to the blockchain scene, and come with a very passionate, hungry mindset, because you will not learn anything unless you ask the community and you ask your team. Yeah, that's what I would just say for now. Okay. What are the differences between public blockchain and permission blockchain? As the word mentions, right? It's permissioned, means that it is relatively more private. It is controlled by a central entity. What we have to appreciate now then is how do they run? Okay, so how blockchains run is based on the peer-to-peer network, the nodes. And that's basically what we want to appreciate, the decentralized ledgers. Distributed ledger. What am I talking? Distributed ledger. So that is a commonality that both types of blockchain shares, which is sharing a common like account space, that how they communicate. Of course, like you've mentioned, that permissioned for the nodes to communicate, update, there may be some permission involved. It's relatively more centralized, but it's faster because of the peer-to-peer node network. Yeah, but that is the general gist and the overarching, I would say the main difference. If you want to look more, it's actually very well documented online on the difference as a basic to compare both types of blockchains. Knowing that all the information, blah, blah, blah. Oh, sorry. What's your advice for new learners? Yeah, as mentioned, I still remember as a newbie, it's going for those networking conferences. That's where you learn. And then if you are really like, wow, I'm so wowed by it, delve a bit more. Maybe you can trade a little bit if you want, or read white papers. And if you were really so keen into it, get into a blockchain startup. The good thing about this, which I forgot to add, is that blockchain startups are really open to new talent, because as I've mentioned, it's a growing industry. So if you come from a financial background, programming background, like just feel free to plant yourself in there, and you realize that the learning journey is exponential. Yeah. I'm 17 this year. Can I even buy crypto? Of course you can buy crypto. Of course you have to get your USDT on the centralized exchanges, but you can trade them on decentralized exchanges if you have what we call MetaMask wallets, your hot wallets, which are your Chrome extensions. Well, that's the best thing about crypto is no one bothers about your identity. It's no KYC measures. So you can trade crypto only if you somehow get your USDT or some USD funds in, and you can just trade freely on the open market through your through your hot wallets. Yeah. What is your take on cryptocurrency taking into consideration the anonymity, which is giving promotion to terror funding and tax evasion? Well, that's a social question. My take, well, I mean, that's sad, of course, but anywhere there's always going to be terror funding. So just that they found this way. Of course, there can be more regulation, and yeah, there can be more regulation for terror funding, but I'm just thinking, like, when you terror fund, for example, on Etherscan, that's all through that. So it's like anonymous thing, right? But you somehow still have to convert that tokens into money, which is what we call the fiat rents. So when you convert that to money, it's through a centralized exchange. I don't know whether there are other tools because I'm not a terrorist myself. So there will already be those KYC measures, and technically you can identify them before it gets too late. For tax evasion, yeah, that's very common. That's why, yeah, I mean, isn't that a good thing for tax evasion? Yeah, so yeah, I think it's good. Yeah. Knowing that all the information we are all trying to pick up when trying to learn, I think that's a same question. Which are the best blockchain companies based out of Singapore to internet? I would say it's the best. Like, there is not best like companies. Like, let's not rank the companies, because that's not what we do in the spirit of blockchain as a decentralized community, right? But I mean, okay, so there are startups. You can always just go to I think Defiance Capital. Arthur, Arthur is going to give a talk, I think, tonight or one of these days from Defiance. So if you go to Defiance, they actually have this cryptocurrency job board, and you can just take a look there. There are a lot of companies there as well. So you can see which one aligns with you. So in blockchain, how I would see it is, first, you have the community management side, which is the very marketing business side of things. Next, another blockchain side of job scope you can anticipate is maybe on the research side. That's more on the fundamentals, the maybe a bit of data analysis, just to get some support for your thesis, for example. And then there can also be those really programming one, which is just software engineering. So that's like creating maybe forking dexes or creating some new products with them. And then there's also another one, which is increasingly getting, I mean, of course, everyone knows proprietary trading. You will see companies like Jump, Crypto coming in. Yeah, so there's actually a whole range. There isn't like a best in each category, because it really just depends on how much you're going to learn, right? And I think personally for myself, when I joined, I think I was just more curious about, of course, the job scope is aligned with my aspirations on like data, finance stuff. And then of course, you also want to know like the roadmap of that company, because I think while we want to join companies out of goodwill, a lot of these companies, not obviously not a lot, that's the wrong thing. Some projects, right, especially in the blockchain space, they always have to create a hype, but there's actually no substance and no meat in it. So do read through the white paper to really understand the roadmap of the company. If it aligns with your vision, great for you. If not, yeah, you can think twice. And then of course, see the people that's through your interviews. How's the community like? What can you learn from them? Because really the blockchain space, as I've mentioned, it's really growing. So you hope to have some experienced members that you can really learn from together and learn together with. Yeah, I think that's really important. So I mean, that's not a direct answer to your question, but I hope, through the different categories and just some of the considerations maybe I had from my own personal experiences, you can embark on that blockchain internship experience wherever you are. Hello, where can we get some practical use cases to practice and verify? Sorry, what do you mean by practice and verify your solutions? I don't really understand by your solutions, but basically, I can actually, since I'm still screen sharing, right? Oh wait, I need Chrome. Okay, maybe I'll just show you what it's like if I don't have confidential contracts in it. Let me just stop share really quickly. So like, I'll just assume that you're asking for like resources and seeing where you can learn from. So I'll just like show you really quickly and everyone here. Yeah, I'll go from oh god. Oh, give me a sec. Okay, yeah. So if let's say you are like a beginner, right? And you want to verify your solutions, is it correct? There's this thing called Crypto Zombies, as I mentioned. So it's really free. It's a whole gamified experience. It sounds really fishy and sus. Like, what the heck is this? But it's actually a really good platform because it's really like a full guide and you get that whole experience of building something from scratch based on that problem statement that they have. So how do I check whether my solutions are correct? So for example, I just typed some nonsense. There is actually like auto grader and auto compiler on this website. So you can actually look for the answers thereafter. Yeah, just like writing a contract, for example. So it's really a step-by-step, hold hands kind of a guide thing. Then if you're more experienced, like, wow, I want to learn something, right? I want to, for example, analyze code, let's say. So the good thing, as I've mentioned about blockchain, is that everything is decentralized. It's all transparent. And you can just go to GitHub. I mean, for those of you who are really so keen on how, for example, Uniswap works, just go to the contracts. Everything actually is online and you can see how it works. And usually what I did was, I would actually get, okay, because I can't remember the link, I'll usually get the white paper and then you can just see like, oh, you actually appreciate how are the ticks. Oh, right, you can see. Okay, thanks. Never mind. Yeah, so Crypto Zombies, since I didn't know I wasn't sharing. So like Crypto Zombies, back to this. So when I go to Crypto Zombies, yeah, so you come across, looks very sus, right? Like what kind of nonsense is this? But it's a really good step-by-step guide. Get started, start the course. The really good thing is that first it's a auto compiler. They're really great for you. They can check on the spot. Like if I type some nonsense, they can check if it's correct. But for this case, the chapter is on writing a simple contract, right? So all I need to do is just maybe define some random contract and just check your answer, show me the answer. Okay, so yeah, roughly there. And just that I was missing the pragma versions, right? So you can see whether your answers are correct. So it's a step-by-step, it's not just contracts. You can see there's a whole lot of things in it. It's a very good step-by-step whole hands guide, as I've mentioned. Then for those of you who are like, okay, I'm a bit more competent, I want to see a bit more about the real world, right? That's really what we want to see in the applications. Go to the GitHub. So as I mentioned, the whole GitHub decentralized community, everything is transparent. Literally what you see on Uniswap, for example, is what you will see here because all the contracts that we verify on Etherscan. And then just go to the core contracts, look for the contracts folder, and you can actually see like for the factory, for example, you can see how it works. So usually on first glance, like for example, I won't understand, then use the white paper as a backup to understand like what is this ticking about. So it's actually all written in the white paper, and then that's how you appreciate how this smart contract is written, just from an analysis point of view. Then for those of you, after you're more adept at it, write your own contracts. Go to this platform called Remix. It's an IDE. And then you can see some of these, contracts that have already been written. So I think tomorrow, Aditya will go through more about writing contracts and just some basics on it. So you can see it's all here, some samples, and then you can consider like compiling, and then you can deploy your smart contract, and basically you can start just playing around with it and see if it works. So of course, if you can't even compile, then technically you got a wrong answer, basically. Yeah. So that's how you can get started at a more advanced stage. But how you can begin? Crypto zombies, or you can, and those of you who are like really programming and hardcore people, not sorry, what Solidity? Solidity docs, yeah. There is a documentation for Solidity that they have. So this is just for Solidity. Of course, there's Rust. For the Rust side, it's another thing, but I think a good starting platform would be smart contracts, which is on Solidity. Okay, yeah. So that's just it for that. I lost the question. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, that's just for practicing and verifying. A Singapore-based app called, okay, I've not heard of Vault, makes you a fixed deposit in crypto. Okay, I've not heard about Vault personally. Yeah, so yeah, I can't really comment on that. Maybe, yeah, I can get back to you another time if you still want it. Yeah. Next time, very interested in your experience when you internet blockchain setup. Do you mind sharing with us more about your experience and how? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Where should I go? Yeah. Let me just get the link up. Defines capital job board. So yes, here. Okay. Okay. So how I got my internship was actually just from like FinTech Society. I think that was just a blast. Yeah, so that's how I started at that startup. But as I'm moving forward right now, I'm just like, for example, as I mentioned, Defines Capital by Arthur. You basically see a lot of these job boards, right? And of course, if you're an intern, then just look for an internship USC. There are quite a few. I think as like an undergrad, you may be like, oh, actually there's like no interns at all, right? Like I don't see an internship position for myself. Actually don't be so disheartened. Because at least for myself thereafter, I just drop cold emails around. Actually you will be shocked. It sounds quite like a sad reality of dropping cold emails. Like what's the point if they're not even opening, right? But you'll be shocked when you get back the replies. Yeah, so I dropped cold emails like everywhere, and I'm glad some of them responded. And you'd be surprised if you have like some cool stuff or some, the interview was cool and cool experience that you have. They're actually willing to open a role for you. So yeah, that was how I would say. So even if you come from like a non-blockchain background, but you have like such a strong SWE background, right, software engineering background, or such a strong financial trading background, just drop a cold email to any of those companies of interest with crypto backgrounds. You'll actually be surprised. Yeah, that's what I would just say. The sad thing why I would say is that why you don't see so much, at least this is from my own view, is that blockchain is so new. It's still a very thriving a very growing industry, emerging industry, and that's why you see you need a lot of support from people who actually know the stuff in their respective fields in the traditional world. That's why you don't really see a lot of internship positions, right? Yeah, so that's how it's seen. Don't be afraid to drop cold emails. But you can find setups is, I mean, there's literally a lot of, you can just literally just type like blockchain internship. Yeah, you can already see 40 something jobs available, and you can see how from there. Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn has as well. My experience there was, so what I did there was first, actually the main thing that I did was forking SushiSwap. So that really got me like into that whole product research kind of an idea of like, how does Uniswap work? How does SushiSwap work? And then once you get that understanding, that's why I say look at the code and look at the white paper, and that's where you can really appreciate how the entire code is structured. And once you understand how the code is structured, it's very easy for you to implement possible changes, right? So that's what I did for the first part, which is just analyzing the white paper and code, making sense of it. Then the second part of it was how we wanted to migrate it to the Polygon network because it's cheaper gas fees. So that would be, of course, more of the coding side of things. Yeah, so it was a very steep curve because everything is really, really independent. You need to have that interest. That's why I said I don't expect it to be like a spoon feed kind of a structured program. It would be great, of course, if you have a mentor to hold hands with you and walk through it, but just be expected everything is to be really driven by you. Yeah, that's all I would say if you want to make the best out of your internship experience. Yeah, but I guess it really opens doors because crypto is wanted practically everywhere. I think right now, at least, like there's really high demand. So after that, I joined a asset management company on the crypto fund, and it just never stops there because the whole ecosystem is really growing, and it's just that fun. Yeah. The cool thing is that because it's growing, you learn with your team as well. So don't be daunted, I would say, by that steep learning curve, because everyone is actually, to be honest, in this together. Like as cliche and as dumb as it sounds, we are literally in this together. Yeah, because everything's in. Yeah, so don't worry about that experience. But so like I've mentioned, yeah, right. So if I'm looking at programming, what's really good to have, of course, is Solidity, right? The backend part, the programming smart contracts. Rust, if you're interested in the Solana ecosystem, it's becoming increasingly popular. So this is something that you may want to get a bit more fluent in for smart contracts. But otherwise, a good understanding of Java, Python, for example, is good because these are just the software engineering principles that you can bring along to the blockchain world. As I've mentioned, blockchain is growing. They're getting people from like Silicon Valley, etc. So you would definitely need those people who are good in, these programming languages. Of course, on the front end languages, definitely, please, they won't change, like React, Next.js, yeah, like all these languages they can build, they won't change because you would definitely need a website somehow, right? So yeah, these are some of the things. And of course, let's not limit to just like software engineering background. But if you are curious, like maybe on the trading side of things, Java, Python, C++ would be good to have, of course, for high frequency trading. Yeah. So I'll just say, like, this is a good to have, depending on which path you want to go. Yeah. How can blockchain technology be integrated with companies doing? Okay, so that's a great question. So what we see here is called token, what I call it, asset tokenization. So here we go. So that's what we see. So basically they represent real tangible assets and they do it on asset tokenization. So for example, actually you can read up more, but I'm just going to give like a really simple thing. This is a very bad example about, I don't know if you guys have heard of USDT, about how basically, backed by US dollars supposedly, but it's not. I'll think of gold. Yes, gold. So there is a company called, I didn't expect to go to their GitHub. So yeah, so there's this company called Paxos. I can't remember what's the company name, sorry. But basically they have this one where they tokenize gold. So there is actually a vault of gold in some place. I won't mention where. And then what happens, just like for every gold in that vault, you get one token. It's just that simple. So why would I even want to do that, right? Like, what's the point? I can just hold the gold. But you see, why would I hold so much gold and carry it wherever I go when I can just hold like one token on this website, I mean, sorry, on this whole one token of Paxos Gold, and if I want to claim it, I just go to some custodian to just claim my gold. So I don't have to really physically carry it everywhere. So that is one thing, right, on asset tokenization. Another thing dealing with real is we see, actually in US there's so many, but just that we don't have the luxury of regulations in Singapore. It's like electric power. Literally, blockchain was used for electric power grids. I won't go through too much in the interest of time. Like, where the heck? Yeah, it's actually quite an old one, like an old project. But you can see how it's being used to with electricity, for example, right? I think another one, of course, if you want to push it further, is the metaverse. You look at Sandbox and Decentraland. There'll be something cool having virtual lands, but that's not real assets. Yeah, but in summary, I mean, these are just some examples that I can think of at the back of my head. So just look for the keyword called asset tokenization. Thanks. Will we ever legalize cryptocurrencies as legal tender? Oh, I mean, I thought we have. Oh, Singapore, sorry, Singapore. Oh, Singapore. I mean, this is not financial advice, so I'm not MAS, I won't really know, but if they legalize it, I mean, okay, so the legalized part, right? It's, as like what I mentioned, can we see it as a medium of exchange? Where am I? Sorry, where the heck did I put it? Right, we have to think about this. Can we legalize it? Is it a medium of, okay, so we know it's a store of value. Okay, that's fine. A bit shady there, but okay, let's give the benefit of doubt. Do we have a medium of exchange? Do we have, for example, Ethereum ATMs? Do we have shops accepting Ethereum? Do we have the infrastructure to support it? So that's the medium of exchange. Next is fungibility. Of course, that's great, right? But then we have to think, do we have wallets on the phone to do it? Like, is it available in Singapore? So when we see these infrastructures starting to take place, I think right now we're just at the regulatory understanding and adaptation. But when we see these infrastructure developments coming to place, I can say, okay, we may be getting there. But will we ever get there in the near future? I don't know. But if you see from other countries, so how I base this off is just based on what other countries are doing, right? Like El Salvador, they have all the Bitcoin ATMs, they have cards, you know, McDonald's is accepting Bitcoin somehow. So there's the infrastructure already. So when we reach that stage, then we have to think, are we at, so, okay, so how I'll even break this down further is, are we even at that stage where we need cryptocurrencies to sort of drive our economy? So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that before I continue to say? When we think about what do I mean by drive our economy? Let's say less developing countries, right? We know their currencies are so, okay, I'm gonna say, are unstable. Their currencies are unstable. They may need some form of, and they rely so much on the US dollar, right? So that's why they start legalizing cryptocurrencies, because it's not just a de-dollarization strategy, but it's also like, oh, it's actually more stable, like Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, for example, El Salvador's one, the currency is like hyperinflation. That's why they use Bitcoin, right? That's why they legalized it. So are we at that stage where our currency is out of control? Okay, so that's the first step. Then the next step is, do we have the infrastructure to support cryptocurrency transactions in McDonald's outlets, for example? That's all. Yeah, just how I just see it. And of course, for CBDCs, if you are really interested in CBDCs in the interest of time, just look at China's digital yuan, how they're doing it, using the, I can't remember the bank. Was it WeChat? I can't remember, what was it? Yeah, just see how they're doing it for the CBDCs part. But for crypto, my just two considerations is, are we at the stage of hyperinflation, and do we have the infrastructure? Yeah, it's just two very basic ideas, considerations I have. Okay, what are the projects that you're all working on? Let's speak through. Okay, projects that we have. Cool. We have NFT projects. We are considering some research projects on trading, which we are still studying at the moment. Yeah, but mostly it's on NFT and DApps. NFTs, of course, is creating like entire NFT collection for companies. Another one is DApps. So previously what we've done, for example, is like a Uniswap V3 liquidity pool calculator. We have worked with, okay, so maybe I'll just talk about the companies then, because I can't remember all the projects right now in the interest of time. So companies are like Xverse was I think some credit scoring thing on crypto. We have Pendle Finance right now. It's about the marketing part and product management with them. We have I think Ripple Create, and then we have another one with an NFT one, which I can't remember. One of the games, which I can't talk about. Yeah, so there are a lot of projects in blockchain department, but basically come with the interest and know that it requires heavy commitment. Yeah, if you want to join. Yeah, this is not really just about CFI. Oh, we just come in and we spoon feed. Like yeah, everything is new. It's also new for us, so you have to be willing to get dirty. Yeah, get your hands dirty in the blockchain field. Yeah, so we can have as many projects as we want, but we hope our members also are passionate and committed to create their own projects as well. That'd be really cool. We can find for them, and there are a lot already. What's your thoughts about NFT related roles and firms? Nansen. Okay, I don't know much about consensus. To give a fair judgment, neither do I know much about Nansen. Okay, fine. I don't know much about both to give a very fair evaluation. Nansen is not just an NFT firm. It's literally a trading firm. I mean, not an analytics firm. So it's not just about that. But what are my thoughts about NFT roles? I mean, you have to specify what type of NFT roles you are looking at. I mean, I don't really know what NFT roles Nansen, for example, has. Let's look at Nansen. Yeah, I don't really know what roles, NFT roles there is one. But yeah, you can see here, internship for Nansen. Yeah, so I can't give a fair comment on that. Other non-technical roles, definitely. Business development strategy is what we've gone through previously. Did I lose the link? I think I lost the link. Damn it. Yeah, there are definitely roles. Social, you see it here, perfect. Social media marketing. You definitely see it. Yeah, business strategies. I would say it's more on community management. If you hit, actually, you can just check online. To be honest, there are a lot of, yeah, like settlement was one of them. I remember they asked, yeah, like really just go online. It's all there. Okay, what kind of coding experience do you have before forking dexes? Was it just Python, or do you have experience? Yeah, Solidity experience. I mean, everything on the dexes for Ethereum are in Solidity, I think. Yeah, so it'd be good to have Solidity. How do you envision blockchain technology to be applied to, like, metaverses? Okay, for real world, I think we have been discussing it a lot. So I'm not going to talk much about that already. I just talk about metaverse. Well, it's already applied, isn't it? Okay, how I see it even further, this is so cool. How do I see it? Where do I start from? Okay, so I mean, of course, metaverses, we always look at the sandbox, right? I mean, there's a go-to of Decentraland. So let's think about it, right? Okay, now we have the metaverse. The idea is to create a virtual reality. So when the word reality comes to mind, it's how do I convert everything right now where we are in the reality space into the virtual reality? So everything that you see right now, for example, a bank, put it in sandbox, put it in the metaverse. That's the application of blockchain. All right, like maybe even school, certificates, although it's already been done. For example, certificates, blockchain it, put it on the ledger. It's transparent. Everything can be seen. Everything can be seen and it cannot be changed, right? So whatever that you see in the physical world, just convert it to the just convert it to the blockchain world. That's all. Just as simple. Any recommended communities we can check out to learn more about blockchain and on what platforms? No, I don't really. I don't really have like a specific community to begin with, but if you want, like for example, if you're interested in Uniswap, for example, I'm on the DEX on Uniswap, right? Okay, no, Uniswap doesn't have Discord. For example, on a Sushi, right? So Sushi, what I can do is just find the Discord, and yeah, the Discord is already there, right? So just go to that Discord link. Oh god, they don't have a Discord. Okay, basically, basic communities have Discord for those projects. Just feel free to zap yourself in there. Yeah, and on what platforms, on whatever platform that you like, that you're interested in. Next, are there any low-code APIs for development of our? I'm not sure what kind of blockchain address that you have, but in my opinion, at least from what I've seen from my own experience, is that everything seems to be on the graph. I mean, that's the easiest way of indexing if you're more for the data part. So having knowledge, oh, I forgot to add this, having knowledge of the writing on the graph will be very important. If you don't know what the graph is, it's like this one. Yeah, this will be really important. You can see, yeah, indexing protocols. So this, I would think it's a place that you can start with. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I would think that that is all. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys have an enjoyable day. And if you have any questions, feel free to ping, I think, the email, or and of course, you can join there's another session tomorrow by Aditya on Web 2 to Web 3. I think more on the coding side of, on the development side of things. Yep, so stay tuned for that. I hope this entire workshop is just a very good introduction. I didn't have much. I hope it gave you a good landscape and like career pathways. And I left more time for Q&A, and I hope that you know, it answered more of those questions, because I think most of us should know the blockchain, like just a rough understanding of it. So I hope that it was more targeted and specific to your queries. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and have a good day ahead.